He gave the speech at my ribbon cutting, then forged the permits that got me shut down. And that was just the beginning. I started thinking back to when it all began. The front door was still swinging open when I hit the pavement. Inside my café, my dream, my blood, everything, was swarming with city officials. Flashlights, clipboards, gloves. One of them was photographing my sink like it was a crime scene. I tried to push through. Someone blocked me. A uniform. "Sir, you need to step back." "That's my business," I shouted. "What the hell is this?" "Code violations. Multiple. You'll receive the full report." A man in a navy blazer stepped out, flipping through a folder. His eyes didn't even meet mine. "You're closed until further notice." I watched them strip everything. The fridge, the pastries, even the hanging lights I'd wired myself. Customers stared from the sidewalk. My employees, frozen, wide-eyed, waiting for me to fix it. I couldn't breathe. By nightfall, the storefront was taped off. Yellow notice on the glass, condemned until further review. I stood there, motionless, until the sun dipped below the buildings and the city turned its back. I drove home in silence, parked, sat in the car for a long time. Then I saw him. Frank, my neighbor, barbecue dad, church councilman, the guy who'd loaned me his truck when I was just starting. He stood at the end of his driveway, watering his hedges. He waved. I waved back, because that's what you do, right? The next morning, I got a package. No return address. Inside, photocopies of building permits, emails, signatures, the city complaints filed against me. They weren't from customers. They were from a corporate entity, one I'd never heard of. Until I saw the owner's name, Franklin M. Carver. Frank, the guy who helped me hang my first sign, who toasted my opening with cheap champagne, who told everyone I was like a son. I sat on the floor with the papers around me like broken glass. He didn't just turn his back on me. He orchestrated the whole thing. I read every line, every forged permit, every lie. He'd filed anonymous complaints, buried me in inspections, bought the building next door through a shell company, lobbied for rezoning. He'd built a trap, and I'd walked in blind. I thought about confronting him, screaming, punching him in his smug, church-going face. But instead, I picked up the papers. Because now I had a new plan, I wasn't going to yell. I was going to expose. The package stayed on my kitchen table for 3 days. I didn't touch it, didn't throw it out either, just kept circling it like it might explode. My phone buzzed with texts from friends. "Heard about the closure, man. Let me know if I can help." But help from who? Most of them knew Frank. Some of them only knew me because of him. I didn't respond. On day 4, I walked past his house. He was raking leaves, waving at the mailman, smiling. The same man who'd offered me his tools, who once brought me soup when I had the flu. How do you reconcile that face with what I now held in a folder? I kept walking, but something in me had started to split. That night, I pulled out the papers again. One document caught my eye. An application for a liquor variance for the property next to mine. A microbrewery proposal. Dated 3 weeks before my first inspection. Filed by West Block Partners, LLC. The listed address? Frank's old dental office. His handwriting, his initials. He'd already planned to replace me. The rage didn't come in a scream. It came in silence. Cold. Methodical. I started listing out the violations he used, the timelines, the email headers. It wasn't hard. He'd been sloppy, confident. Why wouldn't he be? He knew I'd never question him. And that's what hurt most, not the closure, not even the money lost. It was the betrayal. I kept thinking about his wife, Claire, how she used to bring over pies during the holidays. Their daughter, Emily, who I once helped with a school fundraiser. The way Frank talked about community like it was sacred. Was it all fake, or had he just changed? I remembered a moment, 6 months ago. He'd asked how business was. I told him we were doing well. Too well, maybe. We were thinking of expanding. I'd been smiling when I said it. He hadn't smiled back. He just nodded, said, "Growth can be dangerous if you don't pace it." At the time, I thought he was offering advice. Now I heard it as a threat. I searched online for West Block Partners. It led to a web of shell companies, but one stood out, a design firm listed as Interior Consultants for the brewery proposal. Their Instagram was public. One photo stopped me cold. Blueprints on a table, paint swatches, a tiny label in the corner. Future site, West Block Brew, Summer 2025. My address, my store. The caption, "Excited to partner with the Carvers on this incredible new concept." The Carvers. It wasn't just Frank. It was Claire, too. They'd built their dream, on the bones of mine. I closed the laptop. My hands were steady now. The confusion was fading. Denial had done its job, but now it was time to bury it. I looked out the window. Frank was out front again, watering his hedges, and I whispered, not loud enough for him to hear, "You burned my house for your garden." Then I sat down and began to plan the fire. I started with the building inspector, not the one who shut me down. She wouldn't talk, but her assistant, a guy named Marcus I'd met once over coffee and bagels. He used to come in on Thursdays, always tipped well. He remembered my name. I found him after work, leaning against his car, smoking a cigarette like it was the last thing tethering him to the ground. "Hey," I said, "you got a minute?" He looked me over, hesitated, then nodded. 10 minutes later, we sat in his car, windows fogged, and I showed him copies of the permits. He didn't touch them, just stared. "I didn't approve any of that," he said. "Some of those signatures aren't even city format, but the system, it flagged nothing." I asked him if he could send me the digital trail. He shook his head. "If I get caught?" "You won't. You'll send it to an anonymous drop. I'll handle the rest." He paused, then muttered, "I always liked your place." It wasn't a yes. But the next morning, the files arrived in a burner inbox I'd set up. Emails from Frank's shell company, bribes disguised as consulting fees, altered inspection reports, and a line item I hadn't seen before, a contract with a PR firm to manage reputational exposure in the event of public friction. They were preparing for backlash. They knew what they were doing was poison. They just thought no one would ever trace the roots. That afternoon, I ran into Claire at the local co-op. She smiled like nothing had changed. "Hope you're getting back on your feet," she said, placing a carton of oat milk into her basket. "Frank mentioned you were exploring options." I stared at her. Frank's always had a gift for rewriting history. She blinked, then laughed like I'd made a joke. "You should come over for dinner sometime. It'd be good to catch up." I watched her walk away. Then, in the parking lot, I keyed their brand new Range Rover from end to end. It wasn't justice, but it was a start. Later that night, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Ava. She used to run the neighborhood business blog before the paper folded. Smart, relentless, and allergic to bullshit. I told her everything. At first, she didn't say anything, then, "You sure you want to burn the Carvers in public? They've got deep roots." "They buried me alive," I said. "Time to see how they like the dirt." She agreed to help, quietly. Her new podcast, Local Grudge, had just started gaining traction. If I gave her the files, the story, the whole arc, she'd make it sing. "No soft focus," I said. She laughed. "Please, I want the gasoline." I hung up, looked at the stack of evidence now filling my dining table. They'd stolen my trust, my future, my damn floorboards. But they left one thing untouched, my voice. And that's what I'd use to tear them down. The episode went live on a Tuesday. Ava called it Neighbor's Keeper. Tight, brutal, honest. She laid it all out. The forged permits, the shell companies, the timeline of destruction. Names weren't redacted. Photos weren't blurred. I listened to it 3 times that morning. My heart beat louder than the music under her narration. She didn't just tell my story, she revealed the whole ecosystem of small-town betrayal. By noon, it had 12,000 plays. By 4 o'clock, someone spray-painted thief on Frank's garage door. By 6 o'clock, Claire called me. "I hope you're proud," she said. No hello. Just fire. "You burned down my life. We supported you for years. We put food on your shelves. And then you pulled the floor out." She didn't scream, didn't beg. She just said, "You made a mistake," then hung up. That night, I went to the café, just stood across the street, staring at the papered windows. Someone had scrawled over the city's yellow shutdown notice in red marker, "Open your eyes." I wasn't sure if it was for me or from me. I should have felt something. Relief, vengeance, maybe triumph. Instead, I felt cold. Then came the knock. Police. 2 of them. I was polite, calm, until they showed me the warrant. Property damage, harassment, defamation. A civil suit had been filed that morning. West Block Partners vs. Eli Monroe. Backed by evidence. Surveillance footage of me scratching their car. Voicemails of me speaking to Ava. Screenshots of my anonymous emails. Someone had hacked the burner account. They weren't burying me. They were burying everything. At the station, they let me make a call. I tried Ava. Straight to voicemail. Then Jordan, an old friend from City Hall. He'd left years ago, but knew the system. He picked up. "I'm being sued. They're framing me." "No one's framing you," he cut in. "You gave them the match. Now they're burning your side of the street." "You knew. You always knew about them." He was silent. Then, "You should have stayed quiet." He hung up. I walked home in the dark, the cold crawling into my teeth. When I got there, my door was ajar. Inside, chaos. Drawers pulled out, files gone. My hard drive smashed on the floor. They hadn't taken anything of value, just what mattered. In the center of the floor, taped to a broken chair, was one of the podcast's promo flyers. Across it, in thick marker, "Next time, stay grateful." I sat on the ground. Couldn't cry, couldn't scream. Just watched the slow leak from my broken sink soak into the wood grain. A flood, inch by inch, swallowing everything I'd built. And for the first time since it all started, I thought, maybe they were right. Maybe I should have just said thank you and disappeared. I slept on the floor that night. No blankets, no lights, just wood, water stains, and the buzzing of what I hadn't done. By morning, something inside me had settled. Not peace, not even resolve, just direction. They weren't going to let me win. But maybe I could make them regret thinking I'd stay beaten. I needed something bigger than Frank, something permanent. So I went back to the one person who owed me nothing, and maybe because of that could actually help. Riley Moreno. We hadn't spoken since high school. She was the weird, quiet kid who got out and never looked back. Now she ran a forensic accounting firm in Philly. I found her through LinkedIn. She agreed to coffee. Riley showed up with a tablet and no small talk. I dumped the whole story, the podcast, the lawsuit, the break-in. When I mentioned West Block Partners, she didn't blink. "Shell company's real, but it's part of a bigger bundle, Tracer Ridge Holdings. That's the umbrella. You know who runs Tracer?" I shook my head. She flipped the screen toward me. A list of board members. One name at the top. Councilwoman Dana Maris. Frank hadn't just been greedy, he'd been backed by the city itself. "They needed your property to push a rezoning deal through," Riley said. "Your closure allowed them to recategorize the block as underutilized commercial, which fast-tracked grant eligibility. They're leveraging your space for a development pitch." My stomach flipped. All the pieces, every dinner invite, every concerned neighbor conversation, it was theater, cover for a land grab. "This is bigger than a podcast," I said. Riley nodded. You want it public? Number, not yet. I needed leverage. That night, I broke into my own shuttered café. Inside the ceiling tiles above the office, I found what I'd been hoping for, my backup server. Old school, offline. I'd stored it there years ago in case of tech failure. I'd forgotten about it, but I remembered encrypting everything. Customer data, vendor invoices, and all the correspondence with Frank, texts, emails, even a voice message where he joked about owning the block in 5 years. I listened to that message 5 times. Then I sent it, encrypted, to Riley. The next day, she called me back. I've got something for you, she said. One of Tracer's internal memos, leaked through a whistleblower we've been tracking. It confirms Maris signed off on your location as non-essential footprint 3 months before your inspection. I stood in the middle of my ruined apartment, staring at the sunlight through a cracked blind. They labeled me an obstacle, I said. Riley's voice came through firm. Then it's time to become a weapon. She had contacts, a public legal alliance working on municipal corruption. We could go quiet, file a complaint, force a review, freeze the development. But I had another idea. We wait until the fundraiser. What fundraiser? The Maris re-election gala. All of them will be there. Frank, Claire, every face that smiled while they gutted me. She didn't ask what I planned. She just said, then I'll get you the guest list. For the first time in months, I stood up straight. I wasn't after money anymore. I wanted revelation. On their stage, in front of everyone they fooled, and this time they'd have no idea it was coming. The Maris Gala was held at the Artisan Museum. Glass walls, string quartet, champagne served by people who'd never touch it off hours, $500 plate to support community revitalization. It was the perfect place to confront the people who'd destroyed mine. Riley forged our invites. We entered as consultants for an urban equity initiative. I wore a charcoal blazer, no tie, clean shave, eyes cold. Inside, it was all gold accents and hollow laughter. Claire was near the bar, radiant in emerald green. Frank stood beside her, whispering to a developer from out of state. Dana Maris floated table to table like royalty. I scanned the crowd, donors, city reps, a few local press. We had one shot. At 8:15 p.m., Riley slipped into the AV booth. She had a flash drive loaded with a short video, a montage of permits, voice messages, leaked documents, and one final freeze frame of Maris's signature approving the redevelopment zone, stamped weeks before my cafe was closed. At 8:22, Maris took the stage. I want to thank you all for believing in our city's rebirth. Riley gave me the nod. At 8:24, the projector screens flared to life. The video started. At first, just confusion. Then silence. Then gasps. Someone dropped a glass. Frank turned, staring. Claire's face went ghost white. Maris froze mid-sentence, blinking at the screen like it might disappear if she willed it. I stepped forward. Didn't raise my voice. Your rebirth, I said, was built on ashes. Mine. The crowd turned. Phones came out. The press scrambled. Someone shouted, "Is this real?" Another yelled, "That's her voice!" Security approached me, but I stayed still. Riley blocked them at the booth, credentials in hand. Frank tried to speak. Eli, let's not do this here. I met his eyes. You did this here. Claire took his arm, tried to pull him back. Dana Maris recovered first. Ladies and gentlemen, this is misinformation. We'll address it formally. But it was too late. The room had shifted. One reporter from Channel 6 was already live on her phone. Another guest yelled, "How many businesses did you bury?" Frank turned again, desperate now. "This isn't what you think." "No," I said. "It's worse." Then I walked off stage. Riley met me by the exit. "We made noise," she said. I looked back. People weren't clapping. They were questioning. Phones up, eyes open. "What happens now?" I asked. "You're radioactive," she said, "and so are they." I smiled. I can live with that. We stepped into the night. It smelled like rain and scorched earth. Perfect. The fallout didn't take a week. By Monday, the video had 1 million views. Local cafe owner exposes city fraud at fundraiser. The headline ran on 3 platforms before noon. Morris canceled all public appearances. Frank issued a statement through a lawyer, calling the video deeply misleading and malicious. But no one believed him. The developer pulled out. The brewery project was postponed indefinitely. Sponsors evaporated. The neighborhood association, once the Carvers' personal fan club, issued a vote to formally review their role in the rezoning plan. Riley called it civic recoil. I called it survival. 2 days later, I was asked to speak at a small business roundtable to share my perspective. I went, but I didn't preach. I just told the truth. Afterward, a woman approached me, bookstore owner from a few blocks over. "I used to think Frank was a saint," she said. "You reminded me to pay closer attention." That meant more than any court case. But it didn't stop the blowback. My mailbox got smashed. Someone keyed a word I won't repeat across my apartment door. A fake Yelp page popped up for Monroe's Meltdown Cafe, complete with photoshopped rat infestations and health code violations. Frank wasn't speaking publicly, but his allies were. I got invited to a mediation table with Claire and 2 lawyers. They didn't offer money. They offered silence. "Take down the video," one lawyer said. "Sign a confidentiality clause, and we'll withdraw the suit." Claire sat stiff. Her hands were folded, but I could see the shake in her wrist. She still believed in their innocence, or needed to. I looked at her, really looked, and saw someone who'd spent years building a lie with good intentions, and now couldn't separate the house from the foundation. I slid the paper back across the table. "No. You'll lose everything." I already did. I walked out. Outside, the sky was bruised with dusk. A storm coming in. The air smelled like iron. Across the street, the old cafe still sat empty. Boards on the windows. A tag of red graffiti I hadn't seen before. "You made us look." I stood there for a long time. Not proud, not broken. Just real. Marin texted me that night. Just a link. A fundraiser. Revive Monroe. Within hours, it passed its first goal. People were donating, volunteering, commenting. Not because I was a hero, but because I'd made it impossible to look away. And Frank? I never saw him again. They said he moved. Claire stayed behind. Her garden wilted in 2 weeks. No one mowed their lawn. The neighborhood learned something that month. So did I. Justice isn't a trophy. It's a scar. And I wore mine well. It rained the day I took the boards off the cafe. No crowd, no cameras. Just me, a pry bar, and the soft sound of water on pavement. The sign was still there, behind the grime. Monroe and Company. The O cracked but holding. I didn't clean it. I just unlocked the door. Inside, dust curled in the light. On the counter, someone had left a note, folded in plastic to stay dry. No name. No message. Just one word written in block letters. Still, I stood there and let the silence answer.